for you to pop your questions into the chat. Caroline, can we start with one that we've had a few queries about, and that's regarding the letter from Minister Bailey?
Yes, absolutely. So if you haven't caught it, and we did send this out to everybody who's registered with us on the early years register, Minister Bailey has indicated her intent to make changes to the EYFS, likely for September. She set these out helpfully so you can see what's coming. It's come quite early, so people are asking lots of questions, which is absolutely fine. We don't have all the answers. It's departmental changes, so we're working with the department. And what we tend to do when changes like this happen is we'll record a vodcast with the department where they will walk through all the changes, and then Wendy and I generally chat through what this means for inspection. I am happy to just cover, there's just a lot of worry about what happens when I'm going out with a baby, because the changes are really shoring up the sleep requirements and looking at making sure children are safe while they're sleeping, so safer sleep practices. A lot of the Lullaby Trust information is coming into the EYFS. So what we're being asked is, but what happens if I'm out and about, I'm on a school run and the baby falls asleep? That's fine, that still can happen. But it's go onto the Lullaby Trust website, have a look. It's linked out from the EYFS. There's lots of really good practical advice on there about what happens, what's the best way for children to be when they're out in a pram sleeping. So think about temperatures, environment, what that pram, how you got that all set up, making sure they're well ventilated, and all those common sense things that you'll all be doing anyway. So the common sense doesn't go in.
Yeah, that doesn't disappear anywhere, does it? And that's exactly the question, kind of question that Kaylee's asking in the chat there, and that's around those sleep arrangements. But as you say, not coming in until September.
Yeah.
There will be more information about it, but common sense really does need to remain a feature there. But yeah, go and have a look at the information. As Caroline says, we'll be getting ready for when those changes come in and making sure our inspectors are as well.
Yeah, Lullaby Trust and things like babies falling asleep in a car seat or things like that, it will happen. It's just they're not best left in a car seat when you get back, when you get out the said car. And there's some tips. I had a look at Lullaby Trust this afternoon just to see, and there were tips about thinking about the positioning and checking on the baby and them not being in there for too long. So go and have a look.
Brilliant. Okay, so that kind of covers that off. I think the other, while we're waiting for some more questions to come, the other questions that we are still getting, and we have published some updated information about this, is around when will I get my inspection. So that's around us moving from the 6-year window to the 4-year window, and from April we will start to inspect early education and childcare providers more frequently. The change to that 4-year inspection window is part of the Department for Education and Ofsted shared commitment to provide parents with more up-to-date information and reassurances about the quality and safety of their child's early education and care. So each provider who is on the early years register will, from tomorrow, be inspected at least once by March 2030, and then again within a 4-year period following that, and that replaces the 6-year window. I hope that helps. But we will, Kate will, after this Facebook Live, put the links to our latest information on that into the chat. She just nodded at me.
No, it's a really good blog as well, the blog that we've put out. There's lots to know about inspection as well, and it gets updated periodically, so it's a good one to kind of go back to.
Yeah, and we are updating that blog all the time. Okay, so we've got a question here. Can coracles be any good and suitable for children sleeping, and what's the age for under 1 or under 2s? Is it 1 year, 10 months?
So it's a lot of, back to sleep. I would go and look at the Lullaby Trust. So that is where DfE are directing you. If you look from the EYFS, it takes you to NHS, and NHS linked to Lullaby Trust. It's very sound, well-resourced and well-researched information. It covers issues like sleep pods, it covers car seats. It's very unique to you, so you need to go and source the piece of information you need. I wouldn't want to give generic information here that may not apply to your case. We have asked the department to weigh in on sleep pods. Actually, we have said that would be really helpful, so they are looking at that, and they're looking at some more advice and guidance to come out about that. But as I said, as Wendy has said, it's September, so Doesn't change we want children sleeping in safe ways now, so go and look at that information
Yes,
now.
it's
but
there,
we'll
isn't
get
it?
more information now.
And Libby, the same, I would say, for your question, and Dominique, you've got something there as well, around sleeping too.
And it's having the time to digest that information, isn't it, as well, to make sure that you've got those right resources and can link to that and think about how that fits with your practice as well.
Yeah. Okay, Kaylee, another question you've put in there. Thank you. You're welcome. So another quick one. You opened in October. That question just popped off the screen. Where did it go? You opened in October 2024. When would I be looking at first inspection, please? Is there a bit of a backlog at the moment?
So it's not a backlog, it's just that we're moving from coming within 30 months to coming within 18 months. So to do that, we're going to have to compress a lot of first inspections to get to that. So people who are closer to the 30-month will be seeing first, and so on and so on until we get down towards 18 months. But that could take us quite a chunk of the year to get through that. Thankfully, there's a huge amount of childcare providers out there. That's always good news. But that means it'll just take us a little longer to get through everybody and get everybody to that 18-month point. But it would be a gradual change. And once we start moving into that, we'll be able to say more about where that is and what's likely. But I think it goes back to just first inspection is nothing to be
no,
worried
nothing
about.
To be worried about.
Do what you do. Do what you do now. Do what's right for the children, what you're doing every day, and we're going to be perfectly happy with that.
Yeah, so if you're doing what's right for your children, you're doing what's right for Ofsted. Okay.
Absolutely.
Rachel, you've got a question here. Kat, I think this is one for you. How are we now being inspected on achievement, teaching and question mark? Can you talk a little bit about the evaluation areas in the toolkit?
Yeah, absolutely. So the evaluation areas in the toolkit, we've got curriculum and teaching, so that's one evaluation area. And then we've got the achievement evaluation area, where we're really thinking about the progress that children have made as a result of the curriculum and teaching that are designed and implemented within the setting. So I think that hopefully will answer your question, Rachel, around the two differences, because obviously achievement has its own evaluation area alongside curriculum and teaching as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And please do have a look at our toolkit, inspection toolkit, because that is a really useful document. That's what inspectors will be using when they come and see you. So we'd really encourage you to have a look at that. And again, we can pop the link into that after this event. Let's have a look at what we've got here. There's a few more around sleeping requirements.
And I'll take these comments all away because actually I'm in conversations with the department about the kind of clarification you need. So I will make sure that feeds directly into the kind of answers that you're looking for to make sure that you get these specific points. We'll try and make sure that's clarified between now and September. So keep putting them in. We won't be able to answer them here, but we will take them away.
And I think that's really helpful, isn't it, for you, Caroline, for those conversations that you're directly involved with the DfE, because then we're able to show the types of questions that you're asking and the things that you want some clarity on. So thank you for popping those in. Megan, what's the timescale on getting RI nursery settings re-inspected? You're right, it will be usually within 12 months. So that is what we set out in our policy. So it's within, Andrea, are first inspection times any different if you have transferred from an agency? Do you want to take that one, Caroline?
I can take that one indeed. So you come into us, you register with us, and then you come in and it'll be your first inspection along with anybody else who registers with us. There isn't something different because you've come from an agency. We have people who maybe have run a daycare and then set up as a childminder. So you'll be seen within 18 months from now is what we're looking to get to. But as I've already said about the kind of, we're moving those that were previously within 30 months. So a little bit of a adjustment while we get through this year to get people onto that time frame, but those first inspections by the end of the year will all be within that 18 months. That's something we will be doing within the first year this year.
Okay, so Becky, you're asking your work with a co-childminder, you're still waiting for your report following an inspection. Because we've had a renewed framework, it has taken us longer to get through the reports, but that it should be with you as soon as possible. We're very much near to our usual time frame now, so hopefully you have that with you soon. Good evening, Jennifer. You've just joined. Recently inspected under the renewed framework, and what a breath of fresh air it was. The inspector was brilliant with the staff. She spent lots of time interacting with the children and staff. Joint observations were smooth. The two ladies really took time to listen to the staff. So glad the learning walks have gone. That is lovely feedback. Thank you for sharing that. That's good to hear.
Yeah,
isn't it,
really
Kat?
good to hear. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Jennifer,
that is good to hear. And Kat, very much you are very much, you would do the training of our new inspectors, don't you? So
Yeah.
that's
And just hearing that feedback around that collaborative approach and those real fundamentals of those principles that are within the renewed framework, it's just brilliant. Yeah, brilliant to hear that. So thank you.
Julie, thank you for joining us. And you haven't missed anything around the new sleep guidance, apart from, Caroline, did you just want to reiterate?
The letter has gone out to all early years registered providers, so you should have an email from us, because the Minister asked us to send it out, and we did that earlier in the week. But also it's on the Foundation Years website. If you want to go in and have a look, if you didn't get the email for any reason, go in and have a look on the Foundation Years website. But it's not coming until September, so you've not missed anything. You've got plenty of time there.
Okay, and Nazish, is that how you say that? I hope I've pronounced that correctly. You're not being greedy at all. You've got two questions there. How does Ofsted evaluate the effectiveness of quality assurance systems beyond formal observations? Is that our quality assurance processes or quality assurance process of your early years setting would be my response to that one. But Kat, can you just say something about what we look for when we're considering SEND and inclusion?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the toolkit, we have an inclusion evaluation area within the toolkit. And one of the things that's really helpful is looking at the evidence gathering prompts within the toolkit. So they're there to be able to demonstrate what types of things inspectors will be looking for. And that's all there available for you to be able to see for within your settings too. And then really, I think it's about really thinking about how the ambition in the curriculum remains for children with SEND, those that are disadvantaged, those that may have face other barriers to their learning and or well-being. Inspectors will use all the inspection methodology to be able to help them. So those inspection activities, so thinking about case sampling and really getting to understand what it's like for that child in the setting. I think the other thing with that as well is just thinking about how learning's broken down into smaller chunks for children with SEND. So really thinking about their targeted learning, how staff understand that, how it's implemented consistently. They're the types of things that inspectors will want to see and know more about. And I think it's about how they then access the curriculum and how you're helping them to gain the skills and knowledge to meet those ambitious end goals, even though there might be a little bit of a different time for those children depending on their needs.
Brilliant. Yeah. Thanks, Kat. And I think it is about going and having a look at the inspection toolkit. And I did just see a question, do I need to complete a self-evaluation? You don't need to complete a self-evaluation, but actually what we're hoping is that the toolkit, the early years inspection toolkit, is something that providers will want to use in between inspections to help you with, reflections in terms of like a self-improvement tool.
Somebody at the expo said that had been really handy. They'd done that in sessions with their nursery teams, and it really just a lot more depth of understanding in terms of that toolkit and how to use it.
That links a little bit as well to one of the questions that we'd seen earlier around whether we'll ask about the self-evaluation on the planning call, whether inspectors will do that. So I think with that, obviously, during the planning call, inspectors will talk about, what are the settings improvement priorities, what strengths are they celebrating, and then really thinking about that self-evaluation in terms of how leaders kind of recognise those strengths and what they're doing about their improvement priorities. We will ask about the toolkit and whether you've used it as a self-reflection tool, but it's not to say you have to do that. It's just simply to say if you have done that, what are your thoughts? Where do you see yourself sitting across the 5-point grading scale for the evaluation areas? Just getting that bit of a collaborative approach to thinking about your own evaluation of your setting. But again, as Wendy and Caroline said earlier, it's not a you must do, but it would be a really useful tool, hopefully, for you to be able to support your own self-evaluation and thinking within your settings.
Okay, so the other thing I'm seeing, we're still getting quite a few questions here about the sleep, so we can take those away, can't we, Caroline? And we can, yeah.
Thank you, Libby, for marking that questions for later. That's so
Yeah.
helpful as a heading, because then I know when I come
Yeah.
back in, I can just pull them out as questions for later. But I will catch them all. So it's not we're skipping them, but we'll pull them and come back.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the timescale for childmind to be registered with us for a pre-reg visit, please?
Oh, okay. So we published that it's an average of 12 weeks from us taking your application in and processing it. Now you've got to do some bits up front. You've got to get your DBS up front and do some of that before you apply. So factor that into the window. Once you apply and you put an application form in, when we start to process your form, it's 12 weeks through, and you should get a welcome call. And in the welcome call, they'll talk to you about when we're thinking will come out. That's normally around the 8-week mark. So that you can kind of think that's when it's going to be and start to book things in and plan around it. If that needs to slip a little, we'll tell you. That may need to slip a little if the checks don't come back, because we have to go out to local authorities and other departments for checks, because it's making sure children are safe, and that can take different times in different parts of the country. And if we have people who move around a lot, we need to go to different LAs, but 12 weeks is the average. As I say, could be a bit longer, could be a bit quicker. So just gauge it. And then I often get asked about, what about building work? And I'm halfway through building work, and we're good. We can manage if it's not quite finished. What I can't manage is, well, there's going to be a toilet here and there'll be a wall here. So if it's that level of building work, get that done before you apply, because we're not that great at being able to imagine what that's going to look like in the end, and that can go lots of different ways. So yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. I did just see somebody say that they teach on the T-level course, and would we be interested in coming to talk to students? We do. I can't see the question now because that one's disappeared. But there is on our website a request an Ofsted speaker form, so please do feel free to fill that in, and then we can consider that in the usual way. Some more there, Caroline, about sleeping, but we'll take those ones, won't we? Okay.
And it's always good to speak to students. We often get at the expo events, they'll coach groups of students out and they'll come and chat to us, and it's always a really good experience to talk to someone who's right at the start of their childcare career.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and actually one of the things that we heard at one of the recent events we were at was when you were just talking about the registration timelines, Caroline, is that welcome call has been a really positive development for us, really, isn't it? Because that means that people are getting to speak to us ahead of their pre-registration visit.
Checking the forms are right, checking everything's okay, and they'll talk you through, did you want to apply for all registers? I listened in on a call a while back, and the person hadn't understood what the later years registers meant, so they hadn't ticked that box. But once it was explained to them, they absolutely, I'd like that, please. So it was just added on in that call, which I thought was incredibly helpful.
Kat, you can take this one, I think. This one from Tanya here. During the planning call, when discussing where a setting grades themselves, will the inspector ask why or use the observations and discussions on the day?
Yeah, so I think the inspectors would want to get a bit of an overview of why you place yourselves within those parts of the grading scale. That'll just help to give that context, talk about your strengths and your successes, like we said, in terms of that self-evaluation. And then, of course, it's about connecting that to what we see and hear as part of the inspection, and using those inspection activities to really see kind of what's happening within the setting and find out what it's like for a child, and thinking about how children are achieving, belonging, thriving within the setting. So we'll definitely connect those things up. It's not just about the conversation, it's about all of those elements that are going to help us to connect that as inspectors, and in collaboration with you and those shared observations.
And that collaboration is the key thing, isn't it?
Absolutely,
yeah. We're getting some really positive feedback about how that's working. Go on, Caroline.
I'm going to come back to Emma. Just I am taking the sleep things to take away, but I just want to say, if you didn't hear at the start, Emma, and that's absolutely fine, we're all busy. There is nothing out there that says children can't fall asleep in a pram on, say, a school run or out and about. I've just said go and look at Lullaby Trust, look at what's good, safe sleep practices for a child when they're in a pram, and make sure they're not overheating and they're the right temperature, and that you're checking on them. So please don't stop taking children out, because that's problematic if we stop taking children out and about and exploring the world. And they do fall asleep when they're out in their prams and pushchairs. I counted on that when I had little ones who wouldn't sleep at home on walks.
Absolutely. We've come back with the question around quality assurance, and we've also got some feedback here. A great new approach from Ofsted with new inspection framework, had an inspection, and what a pragmatic approach Ofsted has taken, and everyone felt part of it and shared the experience of children, families and staff in a way which was celebrating their successes and achievement. Extremely grateful for this approach of mutual respect and commitment. Thank you for that. That's really great feedback. In terms of our quality assurance, we very much with the renewed framework, we've done an awful lot of training for our inspectors, and we have also had a bit of a steady and assured start. So quite often there's been 2 inspectors out, one supporting the other inspector, and we do have quality assurance processes in place as well. And you know, we've been looking very closely at the reports as they've come through as well. Caroline, there's one there for you from Donna. How long should I be waiting to register an assistant?
Okay, you shouldn't be waiting too long, Donna. It would depend on checks. So as I just said, checks, if they sometimes have to go out to different places, different local authorities, or you know, any extra information that's needed. If it has been too long, you've not said how long you have been waiting. Are we talking months and months? If it is, if you think that there's a chance it might have got a little bit lost in the system, maybe send us an email just asking where it is, because that's frustrating for you. I get you want your assistant out there in ratio and helping you out. So yeah, if it's been we're talking over 4 months, then maybe I would think about just dropping an email just to say where is it at, just checking.
Colleagues, thank you for the comments that you're putting in to say that you're finding these things really helpful, because there is a lot of change at the moment, and yes, we appreciate that it can be overwhelming as well. Okay.
As we say, there'll be more to come on that. So the sessions that we do with the DfE, and we can put, you know, Kate can post the links to here on this page so that you can see them, but they really do walk through the changes to the EYFS, and then Wendy and I talk about what that means for inspection, what we look at and how we interpret that, and I think that's incredibly helpful. Our inspectors find that incredibly helpful, so yeah, hopefully we will.
Helen's asking here, you're waiting to add another setting to your small group of existing settings, asking a bit about timelines for doing that.
Approval of an additional premises, that shouldn't take too long. Depends if there's anything concerning, we might want to come out and have a look and have a chat with you about that, but it should be pretty quick. It's quicker than, I'm talking the 12 weeks for an absolute new registration where we don't know you and you're coming in new to us, something that you're adding on. Those can be done quite quickly. So if you haven't got your application in, get the application in and get the additional premises added on if it's ready.
Okay, I think Sarah's just joined and is just asking if she's missed the stuff about sleep. I don't you want to... Sorry, Caroline.
No, honestly, don't. It's absolutely fine. So the sleep. So as I've said, Minister Bailey has come out with the letter about EYFS changes for September. It's on foundation years. Do not panic, common sense has not gone. It's just there have been some tragic deaths and some tragic cases where good sleep practices haven't been promoted. And the fact that you're all joining this call and worried about this, you are not the people that are going to be the problem here and having these problems with this issue. But have a look at Lullaby Trust, have a look at it. It's all common sense. We're not saying you can't take children out in a pram for a walk. We're not saying any of that's changed. That's not what the DfE is saying. But there are a lot more. It's a lot of what was in Lullaby Trust and in the NHS website coming into the EYFS. So it's not new. These are established practices and principles that are so established, they're now coming into the EYFS.
Yeah, absolutely. Gemma, sorry to hear that you're finding it frustrating to relocate your nursery and being told different time frames, and having a new Ofsted number causes issues with tax repayments. I don't know if, yeah.
I guess that's answering somebody else's question further up the chat.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed that.
So let's just recover, Barb. Let's just cover the moving from 6 years to 4 years again. So you will currently still be on your 6 year kind of window, but you will need to be inspected before March 2030. So we're just kind of like shifting all that across. Okay.
And that blog we're going to link to has got loads of different kind of frequently asked questions, which are really helpful as well, around inspection and what happens within the renewed framework and lots of different things. So hopefully there'll be lots of useful Q&As that can help with your practice as well if you use that link.
And just picking up the question actually that I had that came in before, so we were asked, is Ofsted any closer to having a platform for you all to log in and a bit of a
Yes, I remember that one.
self-service, so you can get in and see if you're running a committee-based group, you can see who's listed on your committee. If you're doing an application, you can get in and see your application. The application side of things is coming towards the end of this year, so once you've submitted an application, it'll be far more interactive. They'll be logging in and seeing where it is in the system, so that's part of our system change, and we're bringing that in, which I think that'd be great, be really helpful, just to know where it is. I think it's a bit of a reassurance for everybody. Sometimes, you know, you're not lost, you're there, we're processing, and it's moving. In terms of self-service for if you're a committee and you've got committee members, that's a little bit further away. It is on our list. It won't be this year, maybe next, but we do want to build and move to a system where you could have an account and log in and update details and give us information. We could just use it to chat to you via. So a far more interactive system is coming, but it's not going to be this year. But it's on my big wish list, isn't it, Wendy?
It definitely is on Caroline's big wish list, and every meeting I'm in with Caroline where we're able to talk about systems, it comes up on Caroline's big wish list. Somebody who was saying that they were inspected in January 25. So if you're inspected in January 2025, you will get your inspection before March 2030. Yeah, so that will be less than 6 years, if that makes sense, because we're making sure that we've had everybody gets an inspection before that date. Okay.
I noticed one a little bit earlier around if inspectors are trained about pedagogical approaches. I think that came up a bit earlier, but it's moved now.
It's moved.
So I can take that if you want, Wendy, while we work out what's happening there. So I just think it's important for us to say really around that of course inspectors are from early years backgrounds, so they do, you know, have that sector and experience and currency. But I think the other part of it is that for Ofsted, we're not wanting to know about every individual pedagogical approach, because it's about what's right for your children, and actually in the context of your setting that might be slightly different. So you might choose to use a pedagogical approach or use a particular teaching approach that helps your children because that's right for them, that helps them to get to those next steps in their learning. And that's what we want to know, really. We want to get underneath the curriculum. So why have you chosen this? Why now? Why for these children? And really start to understand that in the context of your setting. So it's less about us kind of training inspectors to understand every pedagogical approach, and more about our inspectors being able to understand what that means in your setting for your children. Hopefully that helps to answer that one. I'm
just going to pick up on the question there from Emma there. Thank you for sharing that question. And one of the things I just want to say linked to that is one of the things our inspectors will ask you about during the notification call and the subsequent planning call is around whether or not there's any need for any reasonable adjustments. So what I would say is please do share that information when the inspector calls, because then they can talk with you about the best way for you to be able to articulate your answers and put you at ease, really, in terms of how that would work on the inspection.
And there's nothing, if you miss something on the planning call, when the inspector comes out, you can then pick it up and make a note for yourself. It's not like a one chance. It's, you know, do you think, I meant to say that? I think we can all have that in us. So just make a note and tell us.
Because we're observing a lot together, you know, we're doing those ongoing discussions, we're sharing those observations together. Often things happen in the moment and we can have those discussions as they arise. So that can really help to not have to remember like set key things throughout the inspection, because it can be happening, and then when it comes to us while we're having that observation, it makes it easier to have that discussion in the moment sometimes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's an interesting one. We've got a nursery chef with us today. How do we feel about the portion size in food being changed? We now offer seconds in case children may still be or are still hungry. Who wants to take that one?
I'm happy to pick that one up. So the nutrition guidance came out about this time last year, didn't it?
Did we do a podcast on it?
We did do a podcast on it. Yes, we did. So there is a podcast on the nutrition guidance. Those are on foundation years. You can find them there. If children are hungry, yes, they do need to eat a healthy, balanced diet. So it's you know, everything in moderation. We don't, you know, have a look at the guidance, make sure children are eating a healthy, balanced diet. If the children are getting lots of physical activity and they're still hungry, that's fine. We're not going to have the children, it's unique to each child, isn't it? And it's meeting that individual child's needs.
Here's one for you, Kat. You can have. Rachel's asked us here about EYFS leaders, nursery managers not being involved in the learning walk on the day of inspection, and thinking about the Ofsted kind of like the timetable and planning for inspection. So can you just talk about the planning call, because that's because of what we do on the planning call, we no longer do a learning walk as part of our inspection, do we?
No, that's right, Wendy. So yeah, I mean, the planning call is that real opportunity for inspectors to understand the kind of makeup of your leadership team, I guess, within your setting. So that's where we find out about who's involved in that leadership, who knows the children best in terms of the person that's going to be alongside for ongoing reflective discussions and those shared observations. We also talk about things like if there's a leadership structure, so for example, what you've referred to in that question around an EYFS lead, so that might be more than one person. Obviously, we really want to get underneath what's typical within your setting, so it wouldn't really be appropriate for us to take lots of people with us on shared observations and reflection discussions, because that might not be typical for the children. We don't want to impact on practice, so we would probably do that with one of the leaders who knows those children best. But then when we're having those ongoing discussions, when we're having that leadership discussion, those people that are involved in that leadership structure can be part of those conversations. So then you're on that journey with the inspector and the leader that's doing those ongoing shared observations. But I'd say in terms of timetable, we of course share what we hope will be the kind of timetable for the day. But what we do is we always say how flexible that is, because we appreciate what actually happens in a daycare setting. You know, it's not always that we can, in any setting, in any early years setting, it's not always that we can stick to rigid times for set things. You know, we're flexible to make sure we're meeting the needs of leaders and different makeups in terms of childminders and those that may be in smaller settings with people that are in ratio and leaders that are in ratio. So yeah, I'd just say, just be really clear on the planning call about that structure, and other leaders are able to join the planning call as well, so it doesn't have to just be one of the leadership team. And if you're all part of that, then hopefully you'll feel like you've got that, you know, building that rapport, and you can kind of think about that on your inspection in terms of that timetable together.
Thank you, Kat. That's really helpful. So can we have a look, Vicky, you've said that you feel that the sleep questions have still not been clarified, and you put a specific one there. Caroline, do you want to just say something again about, you know, where we're up to at the moment and why we can't be providing that clarity?
So it's the Department for Education that the pen holders with the EYFS, they own that legislation, so they are the ones who will be clarifying those points. What I'm saying today is we'll take away your comments, because I'm giving them to them and saying these are the questions that you're all asking and these are the answers you want. The question was specifically about children going down for and being just the pram, even a buggy in a flat position, just being a sleep vehicle. Have a look at Lullaby Trust and everything, because there's one thing to be out and about, but there's a lot of information there about buggies not being right for children to sleep in, just indoors, just routine. That's where they sleep. They don't get that good movement in there. It's not got the right kind of mattress. It's not got the right kind of ventilation per se. So have a look at that. There's a difference between using a buggy as a permanent sleep thing and just being out and about in one and a child
and doing on a school run or something.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got Amy would like to ask some confirmation around ratios. Can unqualified still be included in ratios, i.e. 10 staff to unqualified?
Go to the EYFS because it's really specific to your setting here, and childminders, not childminders, qualification levels of staff, type of provision. Wendy and I will always say, just because you can doesn't mean you should. There's flex in there. So sometimes children need higher ratios. So have a look at the EYFS for your setting and decide what's right for your setting. It's really clear in there. I do know it doesn't mathematically always break down into exactly, so you do, I was chatting to somebody about that the other day at an event.
Yeah.
You do have to use your common sense. You're not going to have half a child or half a member of staff, so you have to work out how you've done that and why you've done that, and your ability to articulate that to us, and it be meeting the needs of the children. Oh, that's a tricky one from Monica.
Yeah, do you want to have a look at that one from Monica?
So yeah, Monica, if parents are sending all processed food despite you best of efforts to get them to do something different, I think you're on that journey there for education, and and helping those parents to see what's best for their child. Sweets and crisps are not going to be it. I imagine that's interesting behaviour you're getting after a child's had sweets and crisps for lunch. So it's about looking at the nutrition guidance, it's about talking to them about it, it's about helping them. Often it's finding simple ways. It's really quick to grab a bag of crisps and a sweet and a bar of chocolate. So it's helping them, how can they do something that's quick and in a budget that's still healthy. So all those ideas that you can give them, and the nutrition guidance does have a lot of ideas in there for that.
Yeah, that's helpful, thank you.
Well, that's a good comment. This is so insightful. That's a nice comment.
That is a good comment. So, Natalie, you've done the free government early years development training. Is this sufficient enough for the early years register? Are you talking about registering as a childminder?
Assuming so.
I would assume so, because,
Correct us if you're not.
Yeah.
So, for a childminder, you just have to have a really good understanding of the EYFS.
So if you've gone off, you've done that early years development training then, and you've got a really clear understanding of the early years foundation stage, then yeah, that will be.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We often get asked that. What questions am I going to get asked at registration? And there isn't some secret thing. It's the EYFS is what you've got to meet, and we need to. We're not with you all day, every day.
No.
Nor would you want us to be, and nor would we need to be. So we're asking you, how are you going to meet it? Do you know what's in it? Do you know what you're required to do within legislation, and how you're going to make sure that you're meeting it at all times? So it's a talk about that, really. It's a chat about how you're going to do that, and you walking us through what you want to do, and it'll be different for everybody. So the questions will be slightly different depending on what answers we get. So there isn't a formula that we can put out, but EYFS, if you've got a good understanding of EYFS, it will do you proud.
Jackie, let me try and kind of answer your question. If a setting is due now, so if you're at your 6 years now, would they fall under being inspected by March 2030, or are they still likely to come within the year? We're still likely to come within the year because your inspection is due now. Yeah. And then you would have had, then you will, your next, well, depending on the outcome of your inspection, it's likely to be 4 years.
Yes.
For the next one after that. So Diana, hello. What if a childminding setting doesn't have any SEND children? How will they be able to show that they are meeting
Inclusion requirements?
Yeah, and I think that's something around, let's think about the children that you've got in your setting and thinking about children with other barriers to their learning, because you'll be able to talk about your children, you'll know your children. You might have a child who, give me an example, Kat, what can we say?
Maybe a new sibling, within the family, or something has changed significantly within the family,
So that might make them vulnerable or have a barrier to their learning at that moment in time. Or it might be a child that you're worried because they speech and language concerns, or it's about you knowing your children and being able to talk about your children with the inspector.
And if you've previously had children on roll that have had with SEND, or that will also come into conversation, so we'll be able to talk about maybe some previous children that you might have had on roll. Those kind of conversations can also support with that. Some inspectors will ask those kind of questions and think about how you're taking that into consideration within your practice.
Okay, the EYFS does not mention agency staff in terms of first aid qualifications. If we have a level 3 from an agency for temp cover, should they have first aid or not as agencies?
So the interesting thing is, wherever you source your staff from, you need to make sure you've got the right ratio of staff. So you need to make sure you've got somebody first aid trained in the room while children are eating. The requirement that came in last September, so you need to make sure you're meeting those requirements. If you are using an agency that supplies staff that doesn't meet those requirements, how are you going to mitigate that, what you're going to do, because that is something you need to do.
Let's have a look and see if we can, as I scroll through here, let's have a look at...
Oh, there was a question up front that we were asked, just very quickly to clarify. It was why there's a difference in process for inspection for nannies and for childminders.
Okay, yeah.
And a lot of that is about what register you're on. So if you're on the early years register, you comply with the EYFS and you do that. If you're on the later years register, so 5 to 8 for compulsory register and 8 for the voluntary register, and you could be just on the voluntary register as a nanny, because that is a lighter touch register. Now that legislation is set up by the Department for Education, not us, so we're commissioned to inspect certain things in certain ways, and that register, we do 10% of the people on that register have an inspection. So it is different, but it's different by DfE design, because that's the way they set those registers up. That's just how it is.
Okay. I did just see something about, have we had any childminders with any evaluation areas graded as exceptional yet? The answer to that is yes. They're not yet published, but they're on their way. And that actually was one of the questions that we recently added to the FAQ blog that Kate will add to the chat later. Let's have a look. What should we do? Katie, you've just asked, a lot in this chat appear to have been inspected 2022. Can you give a bit more of an update on when likely to be inspected? So 2022, the inspection will that's likely to be a sooner one, because it's got to be done before 2030. So we'll do the ones that are older first.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think we should wrap it up there.
So there'll be more to follow, more information.
Yeah.
So please don't worry about sleep changes. It is good news for children. It's things that are common sense that you will be doing, but please don't stop taking children out for walks.
No, don't. Yeah, and of course you need to go on school runs and things, and have a look at that guidance. And we will, as Caroline says, we're use your questions and things that you've raised so that we can make the department aware of the things that are coming up, so that when those changes come into play in September, there'll be some further clarification for you. Kate's coming quick.
Yeah.
Kate.
Hope you enjoyed that, everybody. I'm going to make sure this goes on YouTube. We're at the Early Years Alliance event this month, and also the School Age Childcare event. So if you're at either of those, come and say hello. Thank you so much for your questions. Hope you enjoyed it. And
Okay.
we'll see you soon.
Have a lovely evening.
Bye.